Welcome to Several Shares, the podcast that puts real estate under the microscope. Today, our guest is Sally Tan, Senior Managing Director and Head of Client Solutions, Savills Singapore. Welcome to the show, Sally. Before heading the Client Solutions unit, you were heading Industrial and Logistics at Savills. Now we have a few choice questions for you on the industrial landscape. For those who may not be familiar with the industrial landscape in Singapore, can you give us a bit of a rundown on the different types of industrial assets?
Thank you, Jack. Let me start by sharing on the industrial land usage in Singapore. And this is largely regulated and guided by the government agency, URA in short. So there are largely three types of industrial land usage. Business park, in which it is for non-pollutive industries and businesses, dealing in high-value, high-tech, research and development, knowledge-intensive industries. Industrial, Business 1, B1 in short, for clean and light activities. Industrial B2 for heavier industry involved in manufacturing and production that has got high environmental impact. So on this land usage, then the various form of facilities are being built. Business park, which is more office-like, factories, storage and warehouses in the B1 and B2 facilities. In land-scarce Singapore, not only these facilities are land-based, there are also many facilities that are multi-tenanted. Jurong Town Corporation, an agency that is under the Ministry of Trade and Industry, is the government authority that is also the master planner and developer and manager of industrial land in Singapore. Other than the government, from the private sector, the REIT owners as well as the private developers are also managers of such industrial asset class in Singapore.
Most companies need an office space, but not all company needs industrial space. What are some of the industries that would be key users of industrial space?
There's a variety of industry that require industrial space. First, there's the aerospace industry that does maintenance, repairs, and operations. Next, there's also the automotive industry that require workshop for car repairs and car services. Then there's also the biotech, biomedical, and the whole healthcare clusters of these activities. And some of them will require the GMP facilities, which are the good manufacturing practices. Chemicals, and these are the industrial and specialty chemicals that require storage of dangerous goods. Carpentry woodwork, that is considered a bit more environmental pollutive. E-commerce, that require logistic warehouse, as well as facility for last mile delivery. Electronics, to serve the semiconductor industry, and also electronics in industrial equipment, computer products, medical devices, as well as consumer products. Food also require food zone that is approved by the government for production as well as manufacturing.
In Q2, industrial rent seems to be growing at a slower pace. Why do you think that is so?
The macroeconomic conditions are largely still very challenging. It's a weak outlook there. Business sentiments are negative. Hence, companies are cautious in their expansion plans. Coupled with high inflationary environment, and this does increase the cost of goods and services, and again curb demand as businesses cut back on spending. There's also the sector-specific slowdowns. Industries such as the manufacturing, distribution, and logistics does drive the demand for industrial space. Slowdown in sectors such as automotive or tech manufacturing has decreased leasing activities and then slow rent increases. E-commerce, it was all booming before COVID and during COVID, but now it has plateaued. So this leads to lower requirement for logistic and warehouses space. And the geopolitical and supply chain factors. The global supply chain disruption, there's ongoing supply chain challenges, and this forced companies to reconsider their logistic strategies, hence reducing the urgency to lease new industrial space until such disruptions are resolved. There's also reshoring and nearshoring and the friendshoring. These are trends in bringing manufacturing closer to home, which is the reshoring part, and this will shift the need for certain types of industrial spaces, particularly in foreign markets, and that leads to variable rent growth depending on location.
Now, the flight to quality trend seems to be catching on in the industrial space. How do you think this will have an impact on rent and the development of industrial spaces?
Traditionally, B1 and B2 spaces are built to just function as factory with very little corporate image. Over time, high specifications such as providing air conditioning, lighting at the common area, as well as full height windows to cater to tech and innovation companies. It is also a flight to efficiency. Traditional warehouse space could be served by cargo lifts, and the modern ones are now what we call ramp up, so that end user could control the usage of space instead of sharing and waiting for the lift access. Sustainability is also another goal mandated by the government and felt necessary by the developers to achieve. We will see more developments built with energy and water efficiency usage.
Right. Now, strata spaces have recovered in Q2, jumping 42.9% quarter on quarter, which is the highest level in 2 years. Is that a sign of increasing investor interest in acquiring industrial property?
There's no ABSD for purchase of industrial properties. ABSD stands for Additional Buyer Stamp Duty. This is an attractive asset class for investors. The activities are largely determined by the supply and availability of good quality strata title asset. The recent jump is largely driven by sales increase in multiple use factory and warehouse spaces. Supply driven, and there is a pent-up demand for new and well-spec spaces. A significant contribution came from the sales of Food Ascent, a new ramp-up food factory launched for sale in Q1 this year.
Now, business parks have been getting a lot of attention lately, especially the older developments. What are some likely strategies for owners and landlords of these units for these older developments that they can adopt to compete with the newer ones?
For business park, physical attributes like the specifications need to be updated to attract businesses to come and operate in such facility. Next, finding a queen bee as a user to attract companies in the same ecosystem to come together. A good example is that of Mapletree Business City, in which it had attracted an international tech company to its campus. And today, Mapletree Business City, in Saville's research, is classified as Business Park Premium, and that's able to attract more companies and talent to locate there. Talking about talent attraction is key. So amenities, transport linkages, including placemaking to attract people to want to come to the office or workspace to collaborate. Last but not least, involving the government. As business parks in Singapore are largely in a campus park-like environment, involving the government as well as the other asset owners in the same park should be able to help improve the amenity, transport linkages, and attract talent to want to come to work in a business park environment.
Right. Now, data centers have also been getting a lot of attention, especially in neighboring countries where there is more space. How do you think Singapore can compete in this area, given that we are limited by space?
For data center, it's not a space conversation. It's the long-term usage and impact of data center operations. It is power and resource intensive asset class. For a data center setup, there are lots of equipment, lots of wire, lots of network equipment, and they generate a lot of power. And for this power, you need a lot of cooling to cool down the facility. So to compete in this area, government is looking to set up a framework and how to ensure DC operators optimize their energy efficiency. So it has set up a 3-year ban on data center growth so as to ensure sustainable management practices aligned with international climate commitments. So a significant step was the 2022 data center call for application Sustainable DC. And this is to ensure new standard to promote greener operations in both existing as well as the new DC. And also in Singapore, we are developing the first tropical DC standard, allowing DC to operate at higher temperature, thus reducing the need for cooling. So I would say Singapore innovations in DC efficiency and sustainability place it at the forefront globally. And with this, I feel that this is how Singapore will compete for global players and investors of DC.
That's interesting. Now, in the latest Savills Nearshoring Index, Singapore is ranked 6th worldwide and 2nd in APAC after Japan. Can you explain what nearshoring is and how being ranked 6th worldwide will impact the Singapore industrial landscape?
Nearshoring is a relocation of the business function to nearby countries, often the neighboring ones, to minimize logistical complexity and to maintain closer collaboration. US-based company looking closer at Mexico is a good example of nearshoring. Goods could travel a shorter distance and imports less likely to be impacted by bottlenecks at the ports. We are ranked 6th and 2nd in APAC, means Singapore is an ideal location for companies to site their functions and operations here. Due to our political and economic stability, proximity to ASEAN markets, competitive labor cost, robust trade agreements, and having the best transport infrastructure. It will attract demand for commercial functions, manufacturing, and production here. Government focus on high value-add investment and space to be provided will be of quality specifications, higher sustainability standards, and well amenity to attract and retain talent.
Good. What do you think will be the trends impacting the industrial real estate in the near term?
We spoke about nearshoring. So, nearshoring, reshoring, friendshoring, even offshoring. This trend will continue for the manufacturing and business function as they find a balance between cost and efficiency of their operations. So as shared above, Singapore scored high on the index, means that more functions could be located here in Singapore. It also would mean that the space take-up may not be permanent, as this company look at that balance. So Singapore, we should look at how we could be agile in responding to such trends. Upgrading and enhancement of the older development to mitigate rising costs and meet sustainability standard would also be a trend that will continue. This will ensure improvement of the value and performance of the older assets. Even for sustainability, brownfield redevelopment, as in retrofitting, could be more resource efficient as well as environmental friendly. Generative AI, rapid advancement and development of generative AI will continue as a trend and will impact real estate activities and facilities here in Singapore. As this industry develops, it will require significant computing power, leading to a rise in demand for data center. There's a need for data storage and processing center, and this again will lead to development of new data center requirements. The technology and tool itself can also help optimize warehouse layout, data center operations, distribution center, as well as production facilities. This will allow operations to be more efficient through storage inventory as well as movement of goods. This sector will also allow more automation tasks in warehouse and manufacturing facilities.
So what's your outlook for the sector for 2025?
It will be good. Industrial is one of the most resilient sectors of the real estate market, and Singapore a regional trading and business hub status. Reliable infrastructure and stable business climate provided by the government to locators will continue to attract investment into the industries which require industrial space.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you, Sally, for joining us.
Thank you, Jack.
You can catch all the latest episodes of Savills Shares, the podcast, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, as well as YouTube Music. Till the next time, God bless. This podcast is for general information only and should not be taken as professional advice. Savills accept no responsibility or liability for any direct or indirect or any consequential loss from the use of, reference to, or the reliance on this podcast or its content.